Hello, this is Nathan, one of the coaches here at MeetRx, with another success story, this time a VIP success story. Our dear friend, Cait Mizzi, who's big in the carnivore community. So, Cait, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me here. It's always nice to share the real life stories because I feel like people can relate so deeply in many cases. So, yeah, as you said, I'm Cait. I am a functional nutritionist here in Canada, and I own a private practice that has been exclusively virtual since the dreaded C word hit. I also am the host of my own podcast, Nosh Podcast, and am one of the contributing members to the Carnivore Roundtable.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. We were chatting a little bit before, and we found out we don't actually live that far apart. I'm here in Canada too, so that's awesome.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Not too far at all.
So, how did you were you always carnivore? When did you find this diet?
No, I was definitely not always carnivore. I was the exact opposite. So I guess it can take you from sort of the beginning of life. I started on a, standard American diet, that sad diet where so many of us have come from. And by the time I was 5, I was diagnosed with 2 different autoimmune conditions. And I maintained that diet by no fault of my own. That was just sort of the information that we had, the lifestyle that we lived as a family in the 80s, like most people. And as I progressed through life, when I became a teenager and could start to make choices for myself, I adopted a vegetarian diet, and then that progressed to a vegan diet. At points within that journey, I even tried on raw vegan, fruitarian. Like, I was really interested in nutrition from a very young age. So I was constantly trying on new things to see what felt right, what helped me with my autoimmune conditions, and, in some cases, what was coolest or what was interesting. And then basically towards my mid-20s, my autoimmune conditions started to become a lot worse. I had a child in my late 20s, and then things really got exacerbated through pregnancy and birth, which often it does for a lot of women. And at that point, I was years into my vegan journey, and I started to hit those blocks. So the first couple of years of being vegan felt really, really good. I felt like I was quote unquote thriving. I looked good. So it was really easy to kind of assume that it must have been working for me. Like, I was at a really healthy weight, having just had a child. So, I'd always be getting feedback from people that were seeing me saying, like, what are you doing? You look so good. You look so healthy. And when you're getting that feedback, no matter what's kind of going on inside of you, you want to push forward, because let's face it, all of us like to receive compliments, especially about the way we look. So at that point, I was really feeling pretty lousy inside. I was super deficient. I was anemic. I had a B12 deficiency despite supplementation. I can only begin to imagine that I was deficient in a whole bunch of other vitamins and minerals. For sure, I was protein deficient. I had major hair loss. My autoimmune conditions were flaring constantly. I was sick all of the time. And something kind of had to give, but I was sort of too nervous to give up the diet and lifestyle that I had identified myself to. It became almost like a religious experience because I was sort of indoctrinated into that community. I had a very popular, for the time, vegan food blog. And it was really challenging to sort of imagine a life where I was disconnected from all of that. So I kind of like closetly started to consume some animal products like eggs for the most part. And I felt a little revitalized there, but it didn't quite do the trick. And it wasn't until I had sort of my worst autoimmune flare of my entire life where I really sat down with myself and was like, you're going to need to look at what you're doing, and you're going to need to come up with a better plan, because obviously this isn't serving you. And that was the moment where I decided I would entertain the idea of bringing more animal foods into my diet and making some shifts. So that was sort of the first place where I then adopted an autoimmune paleo diet, and that transitioned to sort of a keto diet and a carnivore diet. And I finally found a sort of middle ground, sustainable, safe place where I'm animal centric, but not fully carnivore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if it works for you, that's great. But yeah, it's a common story you hear from former vegans that are now carnivore or mostly carnivore, that their health was just falling apart. Were you able to connect the dots when you were going through that it might have been the diet?
Definitely. So within 30 days of changing my diet from predominantly vegan with the inclusion of eggs to a protein centric, grain free, bean free, nut free, seed free diet, I had total reversal and remission of both autoimmune conditions within 30 days. And that sounds really dramatic, and I appreciate that it does, but it is very much the truth. It is not, I don't sell a product or a specific protocol to achieve that. So there's no, I don't get anything for saying that, but that is legitimately what happened. And I'm sure it was multifaceted. You know, I was consuming a diet that was really heavy in inflammatory foods like omega-6 fatty acids, polyunsaturated fatty acids. And I was deficient in amino acids, like the full spectrum, and, most definitely vitamins and minerals that are more abundant in meat, in animal food. So, I think there's probably a number of things going on there, but there's no way, having gone through that I could ever go back to a plant-based diet. Just no way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand when you know what it does to you and why. So, okay. Now I'm trying to think of when you switched over to a carnivore or mostly meat-based diet, was that very difficult to do, coming from eating mostly plants all the time?
It was not difficult physically. Like, I didn't have any nausea or sickness. Like some people report that, when they've been vegetarian or vegan for so long that when they eat meat, they don't know how to digest it. Like, I don't actually buy that. I think that's a load of nonsense personally, but I think it's all in your head. And so, yes, there was definitely an emotional component to it that was uncomfortable for me because, again, like, I hadn't been directly responsible for the killing of an animal in many years. And so that was uncomfortable to a degree. But as I started to feel amazing very quickly, I realized that I had to let go of that and really embrace the diet. I remember very clearly the first time that I was eating liver. So I thought to myself, if I'm going to eat animal products for my health, I'm going to only eat organ meats because those are the most nutrient dense options. And I don't really enjoy them. So it's almost more like a medicine. And so I decided I was only going to do that. And so I wasn't enjoying like chicken wings or a steak. I went right for the bullseye and got liver. And I remember taking a bite of it. I had sauteed it in like butter and I think onions at the time. And it smelled so amazing in my kitchen. I hadn't had a smell like that in my house in so long. And I stood over my sink like a total savage, just like mowing down the liver. And I couldn't stop. And it was so evident that I had been restricting myself so much. And my body was just like, yes, more. I ate the entire bag of liver, which at the time I must have been, it was for sure like 400 grams of liver in one sitting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm just blown away by that because I can't. I've tried to eat liver. You're gonna have to share your recipe, but yeah, I just can't stomach it for some reason. I want to because I know how good it is for us, right? But yeah, we'll have to talk later, and
Sure.
you can give me some advice. So, did all of your health problems slowly improve, or was, like, you mentioned the 30-day thing for the two main ones, right? But what else did you notice there?
So a massive improvement in cognitive performance. So just in day-to-day function, like multitasking, clarity, mental health, like positivity, motivation, inspiration, like all of those things were just very readily available to me quite quickly once I switched over from, again, also I should say it was also like carb limited diet, right? I wasn't consuming a lot of carbs. So although I was animal centric, I also was low carb. So that does come into play as well. It's not like you can eat a loaf of bread and a steak and maybe potentially have the same outcome. So yeah, lots of sort of brain improvements, energy levels increased. I was always a good sleeper, so I can't report that, but I know in many of my patients and clients that they do, they do talk about massive improvements in their sleep. Of course, both of my autoimmune conditions completely resolved themselves or put themselves into remission. So I had a major reduction in symptoms, which made for just a better overall life experience. Mood regulation, like just far more easy to stay steady, like not the ups and downs and ebbs and flows, like especially as a parent, it's easy to kind of like fly off the rails sometimes if you're frustrated or irritated. And that just didn't seem to arise as much. So it was really a total life improvement having made that choice to eat animal based.
Mm-hmm. Now, as a nutritionist, I'm assuming you were a nutritionist before you started Carnivore.
No. So here's the thing. So I was always very involved in health and wellness because it was a passion of mine, especially with a lifelong sort of journey through autoimmune stuff for myself. But I actually worked as a professional makeup artist in entertainment. So I was in television, fashion, advertising, and film. And while in that industry, I had my vegan food blog on the side. And then as I went through my health crisis and made this giant uncovering of shifting from this vegan diet to a more animal-based diet, the light bulb kind of went on over my head. And I was like, I have got to put myself in a position where I can help other people to find the answers, because in the 25 years that I had been seeing dermatologists, endocrinologists, doctors, naturopathic doctors, homeopathic doctors, the list goes on. Not at one time did any one of them tell me to make a dietary change. And excuse me, when it came to the success that I had when I did flip my diet, I remember going to the head of dermatology at McMaster University in Hamilton, which you might know of, a very prominent hospital here. And he rolled his eyes when I showed him the progress, like little total role reversal on my skin, symptom reversal. And he said, it's just sheer luck, total coincidence, nothing to do with your dietary change at all. And in that moment, I was like, you have got to be out of your mind. Like how you can say something like that when the outcome is so drastically different. Like I was moments away from being put on a biologic drug, which, was like upwards of $90,000 a year, would totally wreak havoc on my digestive tract, likely end up resulting in like an IBS or colitis, Crohn's sort of picture had I taken it. And I didn't need to. And that must have triggered him in some way, because I had created a situation where I was no longer requiring his care.
Wow. That says a lot about how high up it goes in the health industry. People that don't approve of carnivore, why would they, if you get good results, why would you not, consider this as a possible option, if not the recommended option? So, but wow, that's insane. Now, when you became a nutritionist, and this is a common thing I find with people that go carnivore, they want to start helping others find the same path that they found. So did you find much pushback?
I did and I didn't. I landed myself in a really forward-thinking clinic at the time. So when I first started my practice, I wasn't on my own. I was in a clinic, a functional medicine clinic in Oakville, and everyone there was totally trusting of me, of my experience. I took my education very seriously. I graduated at the top of my class. I went back for extra certifications at the end of it all. And so I do think I was able to sort of earn the respect and trust of the doctors that were referring out to me. And so there I did not experience so much pushback, but where I do still continue to experience a bit of pushback is from patients themselves, only because they have been so conditioned and brainwashed to believe that, meat is bad for you, that eggs will give you a heart attack, that, dairy is another thing, like, every naturopath I've ever seen tells me not to eat dairy. I'm like, well, like it's more complicated and nuanced than that. So yeah, any of the pushback that I really see is mostly from that area, sometimes from other nutritionists, still nutritionists who might be plant-centric or plant-focused. It's triggering to some people in that regard. And then once in a while, I'll have a doctor, I might be, most of my clients and patients have primary care people, right? And then they'll see me for their nutrition related stuff. And then I will correspond with their doctor and review blood work with them. And so we kind of have a back and forth relationship. And once in a while you get a doctor who's like, how dare you take my patient off of, just for the record, I never take anyone off of medications. Only a doctor can do that. But if a patient of mine comes off of, metformin, for example, then occasionally I'll get some pushback from the doctor being like, what are you doing? Like their cholesterol is going to go up and then it's not going to be diabetes. It'll be heart disease. And, so there's definitely some of that from time to time, but 95% of the time it's received very well, and people are just so happy to have something that works finally. And when they relinquish their fears, they adopt the diet and immediately start to see benefits. And I have never had someone in my practice that hasn't truly benefited from a meat-centric diet yet. It's just not happened.
Mm-hmm. That was going to be my next question about your clients. Could you give us, maybe without naming names, obviously, but could you give us like an extreme example of someone that you were able to help?
Yeah, there was a family actually. So I started working with the adult daughter, and then that progressed to working with her mom. They were both pre-diabetic. The daughter was a night shift worker, a nurse. Sadly, a lot of night shift workers and especially hospital workers just tend to have a pretty poor lifestyle and diet to begin with, because it's easy for that to happen in such a high stress state. And the mom had, been a couple years into her sort of pre-diabetic state. She was on metformin. Her, HDL was really, really low. Her LDL was super, super high. Her triglycerides were super, super high. Both were obese. And I had been working with the daughter for a few months by the time that it came organically enough to sort of introduce her to maybe a more carb restricted, animal focused diet. And I was met with a lot of pushback. She was really uncomfortable, not really wanting to go there. And I said, you've got to trust me. Give me 30 days. If you can give me 30 days, then if nothing happens and there isn't an improvement, then I'm happy to let you go. You can go see another practitioner, or we'll do something different. And so she reluctantly agreed. All right, I'll give you 30 days. And within 30 days, her numbers were totally back to normal, within the optimal range. Her insulin resistance was almost completely reversed. She got her mom on the same diet. Within another 30 days, her mom was completely off of metformin with the support of her doctor. Her pre-diabetic blood sugar numbers were, again, also within the optimal range. And they were just losing weight like at a breakneck pace, which was just so amazing because they weren't restricting at all. I actually had them in what would normally be like a caloric surplus. But for them, just because of the way that their macros had shifted and the nutrients that they were getting were so like restorative, that they were losing weight in this most sustainable way. The daughter, who was a night shift worker, was able to like kind of maintain a sleep-wake cycle, even despite her schedule that just was a little bit more supportive. And they've continued ever since. And that's almost 2 years now. And so they totally left the sick care system.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
We hear stories like that all the time in the carnivore community.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's why we do this. So, um, how can people find you on social media and like if they're interested in availing themselves of your services?
Yeah, sure. So I'm most active on Instagram. My handle on Instagram is my name at Cait Mizzi. I don't know if you guys do show notes, but it's CaitMizzi. I also have a website, caitmizzi.ca. You can book directly from the website or you can read more about me there. And I also have my personal podcast, the Nosh podcast, where we talk about all sorts of different health topics. And then for more specific carnivore information, I'm also an active contributor on Carnivore Roundtable. So any of those places would be great ways to learn more about me. And yep, I am offering one-on-one work currently and into the new year. And that's it. That's about it.
All right, awesome. So, is there any advice you would give anyone who maybe has a similar background and a vegan background and possibly similar health conditions that is listening to this thinking of trying carnivore but not quite there yet?
Yeah. What I would say is, especially to anyone who's vegan, if you're doing it for the cause, quote unquote, if you're doing it because you think it's the right thing environmentally or the right thing ethically, just know that you can't head up a cause or be a force to reckon with in this world if you don't take care of yourself first. So be the cause, like be your own cause, make decisions dietarily and otherwise that support you first. Create power inside of you, and then you can go out in the world and exercise that in whatever way necessary to advocate for change in whatever industry you think needs change. But it always starts with you. So make choices for you, not for the cows and not for anybody else.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Cait. I have a feeling this is going to help a lot of people, and I'm going to do what I can to try and share this with all my friends that are in the area that need, because even my own sister has been asking about finding a nutritionist. So
oh, well, there you go.
I'm going to send her. I'm going to send her your way. Yeah.
Please do.
All right.
I'm happy to help.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you for your time, Cait. And yeah, we'll see you around the carnivore community. I'm going to tune into your podcast, by the way. So
thank you very much. Thanks for your time and thanks for having me.
all right. Have a good day.
You too. Take care.